Hello, and welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we take a look at people's opinions on such issues. I am Ruth Osime. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. Even though we have discussed sexual harassment and rape in the past, an incident has triggered us to discuss the issue again. Recently, a lady was allegedly raped by her colleague. Apparently, instead of giving her a lift home from an official event, as concluded, he took her to a hotel where he proceeded to rape her. She believes her drink was spiked because she woke up dizzy and confused when she found herself naked in strange surroundings with her private parts hurting. She had no clue regarding how she got to the hotel until she saw the hotel CCTV. The case has since been reported and investigations are going on as we speak. The firm where both workers work has released a press statement, part of which I will read here. Quote, "First and foremost, our thoughts are with our colleague who has come forward. We want to express our deepest concern and support for her during this tough time. The accused employee and executive of the company has been placed on administrative leave pending investigations outcome. We understand the gravity of this situation and the impact it has on all involved. Hence, we will handle this situation with the highest level of integrity and transparency." End of quote. The press statement is definitely a step in the right direction for the company and society at large, as the stigma of rape is unfortunately still so ingrained in our culture. Thankfully, with the #MeToo movement, survivors are slowly but surely getting their voices heard, and about time too. We are heading for a short break, but stay with us. As soon as that's done, we will get to the show rolling with our wonderful people in the house. Filmmaker Ifan Michael and Ngwube Effiong, lawyer and human rights activist. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. At this point, let's get to meet our guests, starting with Latasha Ngwube, who is an award-winning veteran Nigerian lifestyle and human interest journalist with 2 decades of multimedia experience, as well as a seasoned and experienced media personality. She has written extensively and left an indelible footprints in traditional print media houses, such as Vanguard newspaper, Allure magazine, and This Day newspaper, also This Day Style, Pride magazine, Business Day, Red Edit magazine, and many more. We also have with us Ifan Michaels, who is a filmmaker, actor, fashion icon, and celebrity stylist. Over the years, he has received numerous awards and nominations for his work, which earned him a spot in the prestigious Forbes 30 Under 30 Africa 2021 list. As a filmmaker, Ifan loves to tell stories that spark conversations and empower people to never give up. Though some of his movies have had numerous award nominations in the American Film Awards 2020, one of his movies won the Breakthrough Film of the Year. Great to have both of you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being us with here on Perspectives. As you know, this is a very sensitive topic. And I just believe that you can never discuss it enough, even though we've discussed it several times before in the past.
Right.
So let me start with you, Ifan. Yours is a very intriguing story. You said you left home at 10. Before you even tell us what happened to you, you left home at 10 and you were on the streets. And from there, you now entered the Forbes 30 Under 30. What was that journey like?
Well, like I always say, no one will tell your story better than you. Mm-hmm. And for me, it has always been, as a young little kid, I've always just had this dream to pursue my dream, into the film industry. So despite my background, where I'm coming from, because, there's just a lot, that is part of my growth, my upbringing, which is, where I'm coming from, like my home.
Yeah, I know that. But what I'm saying is that you left at 10. Where did you live? Who did you live with? How did you feed? How were you exposed to dangers? Because you said that there was so much that you went through. Before we go to the core of the thing, during that time, before what happened to you, how were you existing? Didn't your parents look for you? Who did you live with?
Okay, I think for me, it's kind of Tasha's looking at me.
But actually, can I answer that for you?
Yeah, because maybe
let me tell you, Ifan actually has a film about his life. It's called
watched
The Boy Who Never Falls.
Yes.
So it actually sort of catalogs a little bit about his journey between leaving home and...
So he lived with prostitutes?
Well, I lived with a call girl.
Well,
yeah.
Not me.
Anytime. So you lived with prostitutes. So that's how you were being fed. So you experienced the lifestyle.
No, but I think that was after my parents' separation. Because
Yes.
my parents had separated back then in Port Harcourt. So I left Port Harcourt to Enugu. So from Enugu was when I, just realized that, okay, what, the big fames, the big stars are all in Lagos.
Yeah, but how did you eat?
Well, when I got to Enugu, I was staying with Ruby Ojako. She's still an actor, like she still does the Nollywood fames. Yeah, she's an actor.
Okay,
so I was living with her, but she was a dancer.
Because and I wanted you to tell us, what did you see on the streets? What kind of things did you see on the streets?
There's a lot. I'm sure if we go into what I saw on the streets, I'm sure we would...
So anyway, you learned the hard knocks of life by living on the streets.
Yes.
Okay, let's get to you, Latasha. There's this rape issue, which is very prevalent in society. Not very prevalent, but it's very deep. Sometimes when a victim, and I'm asking you now as a woman what your thoughts are on this, when a victim is being raped, some people can judge you and say, oh, why didn't you fight back? Whereas others just feel, you know what, let me just let this nightmare be over and done with. Do you think it's fair to judge women who don't fight back under such circumstances, even though you're already overpowered as it is?
I mean, I think that the answer to that for any right-thinking person is a resounding no. Because a woman, first of all, how many women have the physical capacity to overpower a man? I mean, it's not, there's no comparison. I mean, even in athletics, for example, the recently concluded Olympics, if men and women had the same physiology and strength and speed, they would compete and there wouldn't be men's 100 meters and women's 100 meters.
In fact, they frowned upon men who have done sex change and competed.
Exactly, because it's not an even playing field. So we wouldn't have men's soccer teams and women's soccer teams. That tells you already about our physiology and our makeup. So there's that. Now, how many women can really fight a man and win? It's not possible. And that's even without the shock and fear of something so precious being taken away from you. I mean, I can imagine that the shock and just the actual fear for one's life. Because it's one thing to be raped and there's another thing to be killed. And of course, we all know that when you're in situations where your actual life is in danger, is a fight or flight response. Now, if you cannot take flight, which means get off and leave the situation, it's fight. But you will hear from survivors most of the time. I prefer to call them survivors than victims. That all I wanted to do was just let him be done and let me get up and go. Just let me have my life. And that's all you're thinking about. So if being immobile, if being still is what you believe is the best way or the safest way out of this situation, then do that. Another thing is that we don't particularly have a culture of self-defense. People are not trained in how to disarm attackers. There's one or two things you can do that can temporarily, displace your attacker and then you can take off. But what if you are bound, for example? What if you are being drugged and you can't even move? What if you have no idea where you are?
This is exactly what happened in this story.
Exactly. And so it's not often a very rational...
She didn't know where she was.
It's not often a very rational argument. And because of the way society, of course, conditions a lot of things, most women would just prefer, let me just take this so I can get up and move on with my life.
Pretend like it never happened.
In whatever capacity.
We're going to deal into that. Dwell into that too also. But I want to ask you, Ifan, this is your Ifan. I'm so used to calling you Ifan, but Ifan, I want to ask you, you were actually raped as a child. How did that affect you? And even physically, emotionally, how did it affect you? What did you have to do to get yourself back on track? Tell us about the experience, first and foremost.
Wow.
If you don't mind. I know it's difficult to relive it, but this is just to inspire other people who have been through your journey and encourage them.
Okay, my own situation happened already, like with a barber who offered to like give me shelter, and this was like.
Okay, so you had left where you were staying to move into his house.
Yes,
so you were his ward.
Yes.
How old were you at the time?
I think I was around 15.
Okay, so you okay. So what happened?
So what happened? I think I was. It's just taking me off memory, like it's taking me back to like what. So what happened was what happened was he asked me to help get him water. That was after, of course, I'd left the Chidima space, yes, where I was staying, yes. So I walked up to him. I spoke to him that, oh, please, I've been chased out of my, where I was staying and all of that. And he was like, oh yeah, really, okay, you'll be assisting me, and all of that. I'm like, oh yeah, no, cool, no problem. So I started staying with him, and there was this day he was like, oh, you know what? Oh, I should help him get water, take it to the bathroom or something, and all that. And then that was where,
No, but he came to meet you where you were.
No, I was already staying at his place.
I know you were, but I'm talking about the physical.
Yes, well, of course.
He came to meet you
in the bathroom.
But were you dressed?
I was dressed. So, but of course, like I was already home. So we're like home. So I was just with my normal, and all of that. So, like, of course, when I was also very young, of course, I have like this I look very, like.
Forget about how you look.
Yes. So
you went to the bathroom,
right,
and you dropped the water for him. So
yes.
He now came. Did he come fully naked or did he come clothed like you two? Was he wearing clothes?
No. He was like, oh, that do I want to shower with him?
Okay, that's under the pretext of
yes. So do I want to shower with him and all of that? I'm like, oh no. He was like, oh yeah, I should just shower with him. And yeah, and that was how.
So you removed your clothes and two of you now entered the shower.
Yeah.
But at the time you removed your clothes and entered the shower, didn't you think that there was a sexual condition involved?
The truth of the matter is, even at that point in time, I was also vulnerable as well, because again, like, where will I go to?
So you were uncomfortable, but you had no choice.
Yeah, so if I leave here, where will I go to? Okay. I've been like chased out from Chidima's place where I was staying, so I'm not there anymore. So if I leave here, it means I'm going back again, on the streets.
So when he now actually had the penetrative sex with you, did you try to fight back? Did you try to resist? Did you beg him?
The truth of the matter is, of course, it's painful, but as a young little child, then I, have to just summon the pain and, whatever that I had to go through.
But you said that you also got injured in the process and you had to have surgery.
Yeah, because at that point in time, I feel like, my body wasn't strong enough to be able to take that. So
your body wasn't strong enough?
Yeah, strong enough to take that. And that was like the first time, yes. So I was trying such. So, of course, I had like some form of injuries and all of that. Yeah. So
how did you now know that you had to go to the hospital?
Because at some point in time, I started having like a little bit of like, bleeding. Discomfort, there and all that. So.
But he knew that.
Now, what happened was I had a confider, which was Nora, is her name. So I had a confider, which I, at some point when already I had a whole lot of like discomfort, and here and there.
And you were still staying with him even after this act?
Yes, I was staying with him, but when I spoke to Nora, and Nora helped me out with going to do, run some tests and also to, check myself and all those. So she just told me that I have to come and start staying where she was staying, because of course she, as Nora also, she's a Cameroonian who also came to Nigeria to also So
anyway, so this guy that did this thing with you, after he did it with you, he pretended like nothing happened and just continued with life.
I'm not even sure. I'm not even aware, because there was this shock when I left the house, because I also left his space as well to Shelly, because then I was not even staying at Teslim Balogun with Shelly Nora at some point, because we bonded, so she just took me as her own brother too as well. So I think my journey in life was just with females, like they were very acceptive in terms of like always welcoming me in their home.
Yes, let me ask you a question, because I don't want to deviate from the actual core reason of this conversation. Looking back now at what you went through when you were raped and the experience that you went through, what would you advise a younger you to do if such incidents happen to them, looking back and how you healed and what you have done so far in life, would you advise them to report the case?
The truth of the matter is, like, you know, like right now, a whole lot of things, you know, we're evolving, right? You know, we have a whole lot of call centers where people can report. We have a lot of places where people can go to seek solace, right? You know, at that point in time, I'm not sure we had all of this,
Okay,
to
so
be
in other
honest.
words, you would introduce this person to these call centers and these places where people can go and seek therapy or help or whatever.
Yeah, therapy. And again, too, one of the reasons why maybe most people can't voice out, maybe based off the personality that must have done that to them, you know. And then secondly as well, maybe because of maybe whatever they are maybe getting from the person, they may not want to do the call out. You know, maybe for their, you know, it could be life-threatening. It could, you know, things. So, you know, so yeah. But of course, I advise people to be able to, you know, to speak up. But then again, I can't control people to when they, to when they should be able to speak. Right, because healing is something that, you know, it could take you forever. Just, you know, you may just want to like,
Let me get back to you, Latasha. We will delve on that more later, Ifan. That, you know, they said they're not the right person. There's a saying in Macbeth that said there's no art that defines the mind's construction in the face. So one would say that when you see some of these people who they tempt rapists, you don't believe that they can create such dastardly acts. So what are some behavioral patterns that one can see in men that you can know that this one has these tendencies? Do you think like maybe jealousy or maybe control? No, let me ask her first, then we can go.
In truth, I don't think that anyone has any label of anything. You can't spot a thief, you can't spot a liar just by looking at them. It's in interactions. The statistics actually say that I think 80% or so of women who are violated know their attackers, which means that you have a relationship of sorts with them, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, a colleague, your boss, your friend, you know, and that's not even going into, you know, relationships like your boyfriend or your husband and things like that. I do think that there are some signs if you really maybe study people and they always say, of course, in hindsight, hindsight is 100.
Yeah, because as in red signals.
There could be possibly some signals. So you find people that are maybe narcissistic in nature, or perhaps they have the kind of jokes, for example, that people share. You know, there are some kind of people on your WhatsApp, I'm sure that they will send some kind of funny things and you're like, you think this is funny? That's a red flag. You're in a WhatsApp group and then you find some guys that are always sending some certain kind of tone deaf or just uncomfortable messaging that's usually about maybe women or derogation of women and things like that, and they find it amusing, they take delight in it. Obviously, you wouldn't recommend that person to another person to date. Let alone, you know, move into, you know, further than that. And so, you know, you learn to perhaps spot, but
what about possessive people who don't, you know, there are some people that you date, they want to cut you away from your friends, cut you away from your family.
People that want to isolate, people that want to isolate
bring down your self-esteem.
Bring down your self-esteem.
Do you understand?
Those are all, but to be honest, it doesn't necessarily also make them rapists. They are just generally people to avoid, you know.
It's all about control to a certain extent.
People that are also very controlling, very domineering, that like to get their way, that want to foist their own will upon you. You know, you don't really necessarily have a say, and then you watch the way they also take rejection. Sometimes that's another one. So a man that often cannot take rejection, or he takes it very poorly, or you know, wants to mess with your mental. I think these are just general red flags. But in all honesty, are there real red flags for a rapist? I'm not sure.
There's none. But you know, another controversial issue is where the woman is judged because she put herself in a quote-unquote compromising situation. You've had instances where they will say, oh, what were you doing there in the first place? Why did you go to his house? You know, and I think it's very unfair because no should be no. What do you think of that?
To be honest, this can happen anywhere. Most people don't, you know, they don't write their story, including this.
Because I mean, somebody can invite you and say, come to my house for dinner.
Yeah.
And you go there innocently thinking that, yes, we're going to have dinner, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing he wants to have sex. And you're like, it's too soon or whatever.
That was not the plan.
And then he now has the sex.
In my own situation, it was never the plan.
Exactly.
Too.
I know somebody who was raped by armed robbers. She was supposed to be on the show today, but she couldn't make it. And she said the first time when she got there, the first thing they asked her, what were you wearing? I mean, for God's sake, armed robbers come to your house. You're at your boyfriend's, armed robbers comes. What would you be wearing, a suit?
An armored suit.
I mean, what a question to ask. And this was coming from a woman.
The truth of the matter is that we still do not have the required... No, first of all, nobody has the right answers. Let's put it out there. Even in more developed worlds, more developed societies, there's still errors. There's still a lot of wide margin of error when it comes to sexual crimes, basically. There's this show I'm so fond of watching. I don't miss it. Law and Order SVU. It's one of my favorites. You see so many types of scenarios of rape. And it's just like, there is no one way. There's different ways that these things can occur. There was one I watched where it was this swim team, and then the boy and his sister on the swim team, and their coach was the one who was raping. He had just called the boy's sister in to talk to her. As soon as the girl came out, the guy saw his sister coming out and went and beat up the coach. And then we were wondering, does he know something? It turned out that he had been raped by the same coach.
Oh my goodness.
And he thought that because he was a guy, that the coach was gay. So seeing his sister come out triggered him so badly that all he wanted to do was to defend his sister. So there are all kinds of people moving around with all kinds of masquerade. You don't know. Yeah. None of us really know. That's
what I also find most unfair is the stigma. It's a stigma because, I think this is why some victims, let me ask you, Ifan, is this also why some victims or survivors refuse to come out to tell their story? Because this stigma is so unfair. It's not as if you asked for it, it just happened. So do you think that from the people you have probably spoken to, or maybe other survivors that you have met, do you feel that part of the reason why they've not had the courage to come out was because of the stigma?
Well, for me, I've been able to put myself in, my own shoes, and I've also put myself in other people's shoes as well, right? Me coming out to speak is, of course, I'm where I am now. I'm doing greatly, which I'm thankful to God, But the truth is, everything happens for a reason. Maybe, this is happening, so this can be another part of my own ministry to also educate people and also to inspire someone out there who might not be able to speak out for themselves. Like I said, time heals, right? And most people right now might just even be watching this and, they've gone through the same, similar situation, and they feel like, oh, you know what? I also need to inspire someone out there, So this is my own courage of me coming out to speak. I also urge people to also, in their own little way, to try and, one way or the other, speak up. As well, because that's also one of the reasons but that's one of the the stepping stone of you finding your healing, and also
at what point did you decide that I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to tell my truth, and I'm going to use myself as an inspiration to others who are going through this journey? At what point in your life did you decide?
I think I was having a conversation with Omotola Jalade Ekende, and
how long ago was this? How old were you at the time?
This was not quite long. I think it was like 2 years.
So it's recent.
Yeah.
You're coming out about this story is recent.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I actually had a conversation with, I had an interview with, Today. So that actually went, viral regarding this conversation.
How did you feel when you now let it out? Did you feel some sense of relief?
Because again, now, when you speak up, you find out that you're not the only one going through
Yes,
that
of
situation.
course, of course.
There are other people, maybe one way or the other, like we said, stigma, what will people say about me, what would they think of me, and all of this. So I got so many, people who reached out to me. Even most people who told me, oh, you know what, if you're in town, if you're in London, if you're here, please, reach out to me. I would love to, you're so brave, look at you now, and all that. I'm grateful to God, because I think if I'm not where I am today, I would have felt maybe, unfulfilled, or maybe I would have felt like, I gave my whole year on this journey, because it was me finding my purpose. It was me trying to actualize my dreams that, led me into this situation where I have to meet all kinds of obstacles and all that.
Okay, but your experience, your rape experience, did it put you off sex totally, or how did it affect your relationships after? How did you learn to trust and now enter relationships? Did it affect you to a certain extent?
Honestly, I'm married to my work. Everybody will know me, even with Latasha here, and all, they know I'm...
So you haven't you've refused to have any proper relationship since this has happened. You're not ready for it?
In terms of relationship, I'm not in a relationship.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie about that. I'm not in a
relationship. But I'm saying,
relationship.
is it your experience that has made you hesitant to be in relationships?
I don't want to say that's the reason, because I still believe, of course, in a wicked, evil world that we live in. We still have some good people, and we still have people who are mannered. But most times, too, maybe because of our past, based off where we're coming from, we're not open to,
so you're still quite,
receiving.
You sort of guard your private life.
Yes, naturally, I'm an introvert. For those who know me, so I safeguard, myself and my space.
Okay.
We're
going on a break right now. So when we come back, we'll dwell more on that. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you right back on Perspectives. Go grab your cup of tea, as I always say, and see you soon. Welcome back to Perspectives. Now, let me ask you, Ifan, you told your truth, and it has made you, it's relieved you of your burden. You feel much lighter. What do you think is the effect when people stay in denial and refuse to discuss it? How do you think that will affect them psychologically?
The truth is, when I realized that I needed to own my truth and face the world, I think that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yes.
So for anyone who don't want to own their truth, they will live with it for the rest of their life. And it might also affect people around them. I think, I also have a girl that this happened to. Mm-hmm. It was even when we got talking that I realized that, okay, this was what happened to her. And I understood why her behavioral pattern. Yes, she transferred, she always transfers aggressions, and she always acts the way she does. So, I think people need to just, they need to understand that, okay, at the end of the day, this have happened.
But not everybody can take that bold
step. I know, but that's why we also need to speak up. We also need to have some kind of confidence too as well.
The question to him was the necessity of speaking out. But I don't feel like we can actually separate that from stigma. Yeah. Actually, they are somehow tied hand in hand. The society where we live also determines to a large extent how people respond to trauma. Just in general, people's trauma responses in this country is usually limited to maybe you tell one person who might tell everybody, or you tell your mother and then she goes into denial, or you tell your pastor. It's only recently that the mental health culture has become something that everybody is talking about. And even then, they talk about it more in like a buzzwordy situation as opposed to real counseling and digging deep. We don't really still have that counsel culture here. in organizations, in schools, and so on. Your pastor is not a psychotherapist. Your pastor is not a shrink. I mean, they do have a calling to help your well-being, but they are not necessarily trained to arm you with the tools to fight what you have gone through. And so for people to feel confident enough to come out and speak, they have to first of all fight stigma. They have to fight even sharing what has happened with someone else, which means accepting that it happened to them.
Yes.
Then they have to fight the whole, the medical aspect of it, because ideally you should go for a rape kit, for DNA collection,
apparently as soon as they
for evidence.
Even speaking of DNA, do they even use it?
You know, this is a crazy question because I know that there's a DNA center here, but I mean, just to quickly segue into the issue of Mohbad, look at how long it's taking on this DNA or no DNA.
I mean, it's just so...
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Actually.
Because that should be one of the strongest evidence in a rape situation.
Exactly. And the truth is that even if we don't have the facility to process it, it doesn't mean it cannot be collected. Now, the reason for collection of DNA is not even just for this victim of now.
Yes, it's for
it is able to also link the rape to other crimes that may be committed. Maybe they've killed someone somewhere, there was DNA left on the scene, but I really don't know. We might need to have a police person here to get into
I'd love to have a policeman or even a lawyer to ask whether
that DNA
has ever
collection
been used to...
That DNA collection culture. So there's also that. And then, of course, for the woman to be treated with medicines like maybe PrEP just for HIV or for whatever venereal diseases or whatever that, you know, all of that. There's also that medical part, which is also very invasive, happening to someone who has just all over again. This is still all the things that someone has to get over in order to speak out. Now you're talking about going to the police station. Have you been to a police station in Nigeria?
Yeah.
Have you been on the receiving end of the Nigerian police's mercy when you are not the criminal?
Yes.
You will think
that you were the victim.
Do you understand?
As if you went and you asked for
As if you're, in fact, it's like you're asking for a favor to be done.
No, but to give the police some credit, I mean, you heard about the incident of a woman that was raped by a pastor, and one of these NGOs, a lady who specializes in rape cases, actually ensured that the victim was sent to the culprit was sent to jail.
Editor.
It's just been
sentenced. You know, as my former editor, I always call you editor. But
I mean, they're in the minority.
To be very honest, we shouldn't be applauding that.
No, we shouldn't applaud.
Because
I know we shouldn't.
It's your job.
Yeah.
And you just said something. She went through an NGO who probably already does so much within that community and has connections enough that they would take this woman seriously. So that means if she didn't go through the NGO, then Oyo is her case.
Yes.
At the end of the day. How many people
Oyo is on your own.
That's, yes, OYO. You know? How many people have the capacity to be able to withstand that in a police station? Someone is asking you some silly question. Okay, madam, fill out the report. Madam, you have to write a statement.
What time did you get there?
So, okay, what's in the statement? What am I writing statement? You write everything. Tell us where you live. Tell us your age. Tell us your university background before you get to this. I mean, somebody is dealing with something. Even again in Western societies, they have dedicated rape units, sexual trauma units, because they know that this is no ordinary crime. Crimes like this are personal. They are invasive and it is dangerous to society. It's insidious. And so you really have to, use kid gloves and shout out to centers like Mirabel Center, Cheche Yara Foundation that work on just helping Warif, that help on working with victims and eventual survivors.
Are facing challenges.
Absolutely.
They are facing challenges.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, and it's just so sad. Because also, aside from rape, let's also talk about the issue of sexual harassment in the offices and the workplaces. Is that some people, even a man cracking lewd jokes, like you said, or sending whatever, they don't see it as sexual harassment.
No, they don't.
Do you understand? So what are the kind of things that you think should be taken as sexual, and should be taken seriously?
I'm glad that you touched on it, because when this story, the one you read in your intro, the ARM lady, when I first read the story, first of all, it actually went around on WhatsApp first before. It took about maybe 10 days before it got to social media. And so the first thing I did was I reached out to my a friend of mine who's a HR person in another organization. Because I know that they said she had reported the case to HR. That lady had reported the case to HR in her office. And so I reached out to my friend and I said, you're in HR. Don't you all have like a HR group or something where you discuss such things? She's like, you're actually right. I should check. Because I'm like, I want to know what the culture is. What should be the response to something like this in an office? So speaking to what you said, what are the things that are acceptable in a work environment, for example? Because you find all kinds of, you see men, you got to meet officer and somebody tell you that, the guy slapped a bum bum.
Yes, I've heard about that.
He's like, this your bra. Now, wow, he's packing your boobs well.
Really,
you're looking sweet. You're looking juicy. All that kind of language.
Yeah, but where do you now draw the line? What if you now, it tells the woman, oh, you're looking so beautiful tonight, or what, or you're looking so beautiful today.
The truth of
is that sexual harassment?
It is actually.
If a man compliments you, it's sexual harassment?
So here's the thing, it is.
So nobody can give compliments anymore.
It's a fine line. It's a very, very fine line. And that's why HR has certain guidelines. If somebody comes and tells you, oh, you look nice today, it depends.
Is that sexual harassment?
No, it's not sexual harassment, but the question is this appropriate workplace language?
Okay, so
this is the thing, because, and there's a reason for these rules, so that tomorrow, you're not going to say it started from compliment, is my paddy, now my guy.
Ideally, males shouldn't compliment females in the workplace.
I think ideally.
Is that what you're saying?
I think again too, if it's constant.
If
your wig looks different.
But if it makes you uncomfortable, HR has an open door policy that says, come in. That's why you have HR. You can go and say, Ifan complimented me, but I don't feel comfortable with the way he compliments.
But can a woman be uncomfortable with compliments?
It depends on who is complimenting her. So let's say, for example, so this story of this lady in ARM, she said that the guy has been trying to get with her. It was part of the story that the guy had been trying to get with her.
Although it's still being judged in court.
But that was her report.
The investigation was
Yeah,
still
exactly.
going on.
So her report said that the guy had been trying to get with her, and even all night that day at the events, the party that he had been trying to talk to her and whatnot.
Yes.
So you can see that she's probably been uncomfortable with this kind of person.
No, because he apparently had asked her to come and sit next to him or so.
Yes.
And she refused.
And things like that. So if you know, we're women. In fact, we're humans. You have instincts.
Yes.
If someone...
You always get the signal.
If someone is making you uncomfortable in the way they compliment you in an office environment, you have every right to get up and
So I think that's actually the key thing.
HR, yes.
The way you feel.
The way you... Exactly.
The man can't hide and say, oh, I was just complimented.
Exactly.
Right. And the undertone of the compliment is what
there's a saying that our people have. I give you handshake, you can't hold me for elbow. No, it's true now. Handshake don't enter elbow, next thing is shoulder. Do you know what I mean? So there's also that to also think about. Like somebody that you know, that you're friendly enough with, can compliment you, but it gets as they will compliment you, maybe they'll come and just hold you on the waist. Even you, if your body is just like, you can tell the person, please stop that. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm a married woman. I'm in a relationship. And you don't even have to be in any of those things. I just don't like it. Okay. Now, if the person doesn't shut it down, but continues against your harassment, this is where it is entering into now harassment territory. Or they're now trying to make you feel isolated, or they ice you out because, I beg you, this one they take joke. It's not a joke. I said, no, enough is enough. I don't want it. So stop it.
So we're going on a break again. So we will conclude when we come back. So see you right back on Perspectives. We'll see you in a minute or two. Thank you. Welcome back to Perspectives. Ifan, I want to ask you, do you have any, with your experience that you've gone through and then, the fact that you've told your story, do you have any plans to create an NGO for survivors?
I've always been, I've always been an advocate for the underrepresented. So, which is one of the reasons why I chose to tell my story with my short film, which currently is being developed into a mini series. So, and I'm also currently partnering with an NGO. I'll be announcing that soon. Where we can have counseling for the victims, yes.
And in your sequel to your film, are you going to actually play out the scene where...
I'm going to play it out because that's my autobiography, yes. So, of course, I will.
Okay.
Yes.
Latasha, let me ask you, because we've spoken so much about this, and there's also the issue of spousal rape. There's also, spousal rape or your partner, even if not your spouse. How do you feel about that? Some people, some typical male chauvinists will tell you that as long as the person is married to you, or as long as you're in a relationship with the person, there's no such thing as rape. So do you think that rape can exist, even if you're in a relationship?
100%.
I believe so too.
A spouse can rape his wife. I mean, just because you people should sleep in the same bed every day doesn't mean that if someone says no, no is a no.
Yes.
The moment you're with someone, no matter your relationship, and you make advances on them sexually, and the person rebuffs you and tells you no, the only response to that no is get up, wear your shokoto, and go.
Yeah. But there are also those that will argue and say, okay, fine. She said no, but we had started with foreplay, and then she now says no. So how do you judge that?
As my friend says, even if you dip the wick, 1, 2, 3,
The
and
no
on
is
4,
no.
they say no.
The no is
Remove
no,
it and
right?
be going.
The no is no, right?
No is no.
The no is no.
You can
Goodness.
change. Once there is a deviation from consent, why are you still there?
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Like, let it go. Leave the matter and just leave it alone.
You know, they say when men, when they're in that situation, they're not with their right senses.
You
But
know, it's-
to a certain extent, yes, I can understand that you need to appreciate the
Yeah.
fact that the woman has said no.
And there was something you said earlier when people say, oh, why were you there? There is such a thing as the wrong place and
The
wrong
wrong
time.
time, yeah.
There is also such a thing as a place that doesn't seem safe, and one still puts themselves in situations. So for example, are you going to go into Obalende at 2 a.m. because you want to take a stroll? Or you're doing fit farm, so you want to jog in, I don't know, where can I say, you want to go to Akpongo and jog at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
You are putting yourself in clear danger. So there are situations that people find themselves in the wrong place and the wrong time. Try as much as possible
Yeah.
to avoid,
Yeah, especially with these young people, which comes
dangerous
to this
situations.
spiking of drinks that I was going to discuss
Yes.
with you again too. That you find young women, I don't know whether mature women still get involved in those kind of things, where there are 2 friends, 2 male friends, 2 female friends. One set is getting it together, and you are now stuck with this person who is not really your partner, or you find yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, those kind of situations, now what do you now do? Especially when it comes to the spiking of drinks. I hear that once that drink is spiked, half the time you've lost your senses.
But don't get too carried away.
No, but how do you even protect this? Because you can have your drink on the table and not even know that it has been spiked.
Well, the truth is, we all have to be conscious of our personal
Yes.
safety at this point in time. The world has turned bad. Gone are those days where such things are unheard of. And even in the days where such things were unheard of, it was still happening, just more hush-hush.
So is it very rampant now, this spiking?
It
of
would
drinks?
seem so. Date rape has always been around. I think maybe it's now moving into the Nigerian space due to globalization. People are seeing things on films. They want to try it out. Oh, I heard that. Oh, if I put the thing in her cup, it'll just make her more at ease. It'll make her more relaxed and things like that.
Because this lady in this situation,
Yes,
even though
she
it's still being
says-
investigated,
she claims that-
she just woke up and found herself naked.
Absolutely.
Imagine how frightening
But then
and
again-
harrowing that must be.
But then again, like, one thing I don't do is leave my drink.
Unattended to.
Yeah, because if
But it's
I
always
go
safer to-
out and I
is
come
that,
back,
is that why they say there's safety in numbers? At least if it's not just you, your friends are there to watch over
There
the drinks.
is
when you go and
that.
but
dance
as
or
long
something.
as, but what I always tell people, as long as you have an open drink, even with food, anything, as long as it's open and you take a walk.
So are these spikes in form of tablets, or how is it? Is it powder form?
I guess there's all sorts. There's powdered
Yeah,
form,
powdered
there's
form,
caplets,
yeah.
something that can
And
easily
you don't taste
dilute,
it?
and they are tasteless
Oh, okay.
as well. So
Yeah.
it doesn't
That's why it's so
change
dangerous.
exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily change. And maybe you're drinking something that you're not quite accustomed to drinking, so you don't really know. Some people tell you, "Oh, I want champagne," but they know what champagne tastes like. Oh, it's not sweet. It's not the sweet type. People can't really differentiate that much. People's taste and things like that. So you have to be careful. Have a trusted wing person, I suppose, when you go out.
That's
Someone
right.
that's looking out for you. But
you.
also, you are also not totally someone else's responsibility. You are responsible for yourself
Yourself.
first.
Yeah, I know.
And so you have to just be careful. It's really a very funny one. People just have to be very careful. People just have to be careful.
And don't put yourself in this, because I've also heard of gang rape, which is even worse. I mean, I don't know whether you heard recently about the doctor in India. So she was gang raped and raped to death. And all the women are now protesting on the streets. So even that gang rape thing is also another harrowing, even more harrowing.
Yeah, you see girls on campus, maybe they went to read late at night, they are coming back, and then they are set upon by a bunch of boys and things like that. There's all kinds of scenarios. Really, ladies need to just be very careful, because you just don't want to be in this situation. But at the end of the day, sometimes there is nothing anyone can do. If you're a news anchor, you work in a television station, you have to be at your job all day, sometimes into the night time.
Yes.
When I worked at the newspaper in this day, we would be in the office sometimes till 2, 3 in the morning. Absolutely. Yeah. And so you just have, it's the grace of God, it's also your wits, a bit of your instincts about you. Learn to trust your instincts and just try to be careful as much as you can, because honestly, we are not yet there in Nigeria. We are not yet there at all where you can tell your story confidently and not get stigmatized. Yes. People need to be more sensitized, to be more emotional, and
more sensitive,
and less judgmental to people. Right. If you have the capacity to help people be more, or get to the end of, see situations through. Yes. See what you can do, because it's a global village and it can happen to anyone you know.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us, Latasha. Thank you so much for being with us, Ifan.
So much.
Michaels, Latasha, and Ngwube, thank you so much for your very deep insight into today's conversation. I will hope that our readers, our listeners, we hope that our listeners will learn a word or two, learn a thing or two from what we have discussed so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. As we all know, nobody in their right mind will claim to be raped if they were not. And each time anyone questions their credibility, the survivor hurts even more. To the many survivors out there, remember, you are not alone. We believe you, regardless of how, when, whether or not you decide to speak your truth. While it may be difficult to overcome this invasive assault, it's never too late to find healing and move forward from your past. Your worst moments do not need to define you. As long as you're alive, there is hope. And keep remembering, as I always say, life is a learning curve. So that's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Rise News with me, Ruth Osime. Until we get together again next week, do stay safe and have a great time. Goodbye.